Am I really misleading people? What's up, guys? My name is McKeown. I'm a licensed real estate agent in the Dallas-Fort Worth area of Texas, as well as an investor myself. Now, I got this comment on my last YouTube video, and I wanted to make an entire video about this, not necessarily because I disagree wholeheartedly on the comment, but it certainly could be beneficial for people that are looking to sell and buy, or just looking to buy their first home today. So the comment actually says, you are misleading people when you say interest rates are high. They are actually the average over the last 30 years. It's not the interest rate, it's the price of the home. So first things first, when it comes to being able to afford a home, all of us know there are a few things that factor into our total mortgage cost. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So I'm going to go through every single one of those and how interest rates and how the price of the home is affected on every single one of those. So first things first is principal. This is the total loan value that you took out. This is going to be paid over the course of maybe 10, 15, 20, or 30 years. Eventually, once the loan is paid off, you don't have any more principal balance. So with PITI, the next after principal is interest. I'm going to go over that plenty myself, but what I can tell you is when you're looking at the last 40 or 50 years of just mortgage rates in general, you're going to see a huge spike in the 80s. When you have a huge spike on any kind of graph and you're looking at an average, you're going to have your average kind of skewed because you have that huge spike. The same thing can actually be said if you're looking at 2019, 2020, where interest rates were lower than they ever have been and likely lower than they ever will be. And last but not least, we're looking at taxes and insurance. So all four of those are what really makes up your mortgage payment. Now, what I'm going to do is actually address every single one of these and kind of show you what has happened over the last 30 or 40 years, but more or less what's really happened over the last 10 years. So starting with principal. Principal, again, is your loan balance, which is directly correlated with more than likely the home price. For instance, if you're buying a $500,000 house with your VA loan, your principal balance is going to be $500,000. But home prices have a large barrier here, meaning if you're looking back at 2003, you're roughly paying about $130,000 for an average home in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. But that's 20 years ago in 2003. Let's fast forward 10 years, just 10 years ago in 2013, home prices over the last decade from 2003 to 2013 increased about 13%. Now, if you chop that up to an annual basis, you're looking at a little over 1% appreciation on an annual basis. Now, let's look at 2019 to 2023, mid-2023. Well, what I can tell you there is you've had an appreciation almost 60% in just 4.5 years. Now, if you chop that up by 4.5, you're looking at an annual basis of appreciation north of 13% in my local market. That's just absolutely insane. Now, I'm not going to get into exactly why home prices have surged as much as they have. A lot of people will say, well, interest rates were really, really low, making homes affordable, so home prices just skyrocketed. But on the flip side, home prices haven't really seen a tremendous fall down with the rise in what mortgage rates currently are. But what I can say is your principal balance nowadays compared to just 4.5 years ago, or even if you want to go all the way back to 2013 or maybe 2003, there's a huge difference in home prices nowadays, which is going to directly affect what you're paying on your monthly balance. So as the comment specifically stated, it's not the interest rate, guys. It's just the fact that home prices are exceptionally more expensive now than they were just 5 years ago. Well, I'm going to give you an exact example with two properties that I purchased, one in 2020 and one that I actually just refinanced about 30 or 45 days ago. The difference here is one has a 15-year note at less than 2% interest rate, and the other has an interest rate slightly below 8%. So yes, we're talking a significant difference in interest rates, which according to this comment doesn't really matter, but truly it does. It makes housing far less affordable. My 15-year note that is actually for the primary residence that I built at 1.875% interest rate. Again, it is a 15-year note, so traditionally on a 15-year note, you're going to be paying a lot more down on your principal than you would be paying on a 30-year note. But just to give you guys some rough numbers, my principal balance when I first started this loan was about $540,000. The total amount on a monthly basis that I was paying down my principal, which the way I look at it personally, that's essentially growing my net worth because I'm paying down my own debt, or my Airbnb that I have in this house is paying down my debt, or my roommate that I had previously is paying down my existing debt. But that's north of $2,000 a month. My mortgage is about $3,500. 2/3 of my mortgage is actually going to pay down my principal because the interest rate is so low. But the key with my primary residence here, because I got a 15-year note and the interest rate is so incredibly low, I'm able to pay on a monthly basis double towards principal than what I'm actually paying in interest. So let's give you an example for a property that I just refinanced. A lot of you may be familiar with the cabin that I built in Oklahoma. Thankfully, it's finally renting out now and creating income for me, but I had to refinance it out of a commercial 20-year note to a fixed 30-year note because the mortgage was actually going to get close to 10%. Now, I'm fortunate now with a little bit below 8%, but just some quick numbers on this property alone, my monthly mortgage is $8,300. Now, the loan balance comparatively to my primary residence is about double. Instead of in the 500,000 loan balance, I'm looking close to about $1 million in total loan balance. So you'd assume maybe double the amount paid down in principal, maybe double the amount in interest if you're just using straight numbers. But the big key here is a huge difference in the interest rate. Again, we're talking 1.875 versus almost 8%. And to give you some quick numbers on that 8,300, about 6,000 of that is going towards interest alone, just on a monthly basis, comparatively to my primary residence, which I'm paying just about $1,000 a month on interest. So yes, not equal comparisons because we're talking about a property that has double the amount of principal balance or double the loan. But even if you took my primary residence, which is about $1,000 a month in interest, doubled that and made it $2,000, and then even adjusted a little bit for the fact that it's a 15-year note versus a 30-year note, you're still talking about $3,000 a month that I would be spending on interest for my new cabin that I just refinanced. But because the interest rate is not 2%, it's actually 8%. I'm not spending $3,000 a month on interest for a mortgage balance of about $1 million. I'm paying north of $6,000 a month. Now, yes, taxes and insurance do play a role, and I think all of us can agree. And if you don't, you probably haven't paid your taxes or your insurance in the last couple of years. But taxes have gone up solely because home prices have gone up. That's just correlation. And insurance, for whatever reason, has gone up and continues to go up. Even if you don't have any claims, I know here specifically in Texas, we've had a handful of storms and just nightmares when it comes to insurance. So insurance is by no means incredibly cheap either. So let's go back to the comment that this individual made, stating that it's not about the interest rates, it's about the home prices. I'm not disagreeing the fact that home prices have absolutely skyrocketed. I can tell you, me firsthand, I am thankful that they have, because that's been a huge growth in my total net worth, and it's going to continue to be as I have tenants pay off my mortgages. But I'm certainly not loving the higher than normal interest rates. If you eliminate a majority of the interest rates in the 1980s, where homes were far more affordable, in the 60,000s in the Dallas-Fort Worth area as far as an average, homes were far more affordable than they are now. All you're doing is amplifying the fact that homes are even less affordable. And truly, right now, the real estate market that we're in is the least affordable housing market that we've ever experienced, due to the fact that interest rates are not incredibly low. They're what this individual commenter stated is average, but home prices by no means are average over the last 30 or 40 years. Home prices are more now than they truly ever have. So let's go back to what this individual actually commented, stating that the interest rates don't matter. It's all about home prices. Well, if you do eliminate a majority of the interest rates in the 1980s, where we're at currently with mortgage interest rates would not be an average. Now, I can also tell you, if we get up to where interest rates were in the 1980s and home prices don't absolutely tank, home ownership will no longer even be attainable by the average Joe. A lot of people even want to argue right now it's not capable in these, overpriced markets or large cities and metroplexes, that just home ownership is not a thing. Unless you're dual income and you're getting potentially help from both of their parents, home ownership is getting more and more difficult to be attainable. But interest rates are not to be set aside and forgotten. Interest rates right now are really the highest we've seen over the last decade, and it certainly does not pair well with the fact that, just like I mentioned before, in the last 4.5 years, home prices have gone up 60%. So to close this all up, interest rates, yes, they, in my opinion, are high. They, in my opinion, are high because I'm paying $6,000 a month for a property that if I would have bought just 3 years ago, I would have been paying half of the interest that I'm paying now. A lot of people want to come back and say, well, interest rates 3 years ago were historically low and we're never going to experience that again. But I could say also 3 years ago, homes were a lot more affordable. So yes, rates where they are now, if we exclude a majority of the 1980s, are historically high. And I really hope that we see some kind of correction, not necessarily down to the 2s or 3s that we saw in the 2020s, but 4 or 5s would be a little bit more reasonable, and I certainly wouldn't be upset about. Thanks again for watching, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. It really does help, and stay tuned for the next video.